So next we are going to talk about unlocking sustainable mobility with battery and DC charging solutions. And I'm very happy to welcome on stage Andreas Gronartz, Director Business Development EMEA for Infypower. Welcome, Andreas.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Johanna, for introducing me. It's a pleasure to be here in this historic scenery at Tempelhof in front of this airplane, the Candy Bomber. I guess everybody knows from you what the Candy Bomber did some 60 years ago, or more than 60 years ago, to the people of Berlin. But that's not the topic I would like to talk here about. I would like to shortly introduce you the company Infypower, which stands for Innovation for Your Power. It's a Shenzhen-based company, and I'm just coming back from Shenzhen. I don't know who of you ever had the opportunity to go there and see what has been happening in Shenzhen in the last 25 to 30 years. This great Bay Area, how they call it those days. There used to be this Bay Area in San Francisco, where all the top management or some management people from Germany, Berlin, and some other places went over. But now there's a new, let's say, great Bay Area in Shenzhen, southern part of China, on the opposite side of Hong Kong, where Infypower is based as well with the headquarters, with the R&D, and where many of those equipment you see here in the hall is coming from those days. Infypower is a company which was founded like 10 years ago in Shenzhen by people from the telecom industry originally, a company called Emerson Power. And the aim or the ambition or the why, those days we all talk about the why of a company, is to be a leading provider of the electrification industry, or the energy power and storage industry basically, and a technical benchmark and pioneer in the power industry. If you look what's going on in the electrification industry those days, and if you look what shift there is when you see all these renewables, the political targets, what kind of power you get from solar modules, what kind of power you get from battery storage. I personally, and we as a company, think that there is a big shift to DC-based installations out there, away from AC-based installations. Everybody's talking about artificial intelligence, big hype. What do we need for artificial intelligence? Basically data centers. If you look how the setup of data centers is done, it's very much DC-based. Another reason, again, why we see there's a big, or why we think there's a big shift to DC-based systems. Again, as said before, a short sales pitch about Infypower. The origins are in telecom industry. Company was founded in 2014. One of the main early investors is the Japanese SoftBank Group and CATL, one of the biggest battery suppliers those days. I'm personally working in the battery industry for the last 10, 15 years, so I know what basically happened to the battery industry and how the whole shift when it comes to Japanese, Korean, now Chinese players were happening to NMC and LFP sales then. Company is a well-funded mid-sized company, so rather small size for a Chinese player. And the turnover, just to be very transparent here, is like 350 million euro. And the main business those days was, or is still those days, DC-based, bidirectional, unidirectional, AC/DC based, liquid-cooled modules. And with those modules, we have been able to supply and equip one of the some very interesting projects here in Europe. My hometown is Munich. If you look to a station called Zusmarshausen next to Munich, it's one of the biggest fast charging stations in Germany, probably in Europe, where the main supplier of those stations was Infypower. And there's a lot of bus as well. In Europe, it's probably more bus than really big business already for V2G, whereas in Asia, it's much more farther developed. But the biggest V2G projects as well, which are happening right now in Asia, in Korea or in China, we're a well-known supplier in those projects as well over there, with our equipment. Very shortly, another footprint slide. So we have basically this module business, power module business, and a footprint of around 5 million power modules sold so far, liquid-cooled and air-cooled power modules, 20 kilowatt up to 60 kilowatt power modules, which are basically the core component of all these DC chargers in here. And we are, as some of you might know, as a supplier, know many of those charging stations out there. And with those, we achieved to have a lot of customers already on a worldwide level. And going from this core business, power modules, DC based, we are going a little bit up the value chain. And but again, as said, this is when you see what kind of electricity, what kind of power you get from the solar modules, what power you get from the batteries. We see ourselves in the middle of this with our modules. And the slides I like most from the company slides, rather technical, but it basically shows you, let's say, the core competence of probably of this company, of Infypower, of my company, with their liquid-cooled or air-cooled modules as one of the, let's say, the heart of the power conversion technology behind. As said, going from there, we have power modules, 70% business, and then we have the DC fast charging business in the middle, where we very often, in most of the cases, supply those fast chargers on a white label basis to the industry out there. And next to this, on the right-hand side, you see the battery storage, which is the business I'm heading in Europe here for Infy. Battery storage as a buffer solution for DC fast charging, which is becoming more and more interesting. The battery is the technology of our time, the economist once said, but the battery is, let's say, one of the key enabler for everything is out there. I personally think so. And therefore, it's getting more and more interesting, having installed much more batteries as a buffer solution to trade with the battery for your own consumption, for peak shaving, for whatever kind of applications there are. Many applications are there. And as you can see in here, the different solutions we are supplying today. On the portfolio, it's not you don't have to look at all the details. It's just to give you a rough idea what kind of portfolio we have. So going from the power modules, we developed our own liquid-cooled battery modules as well, not air-cooled, based on the cells we're getting from CATL, the main investor from us. And then we have our own chiller units on it, and we're basically then implementing them in this big energy storage systems you see on the right-hand side for the charging industry and for other C&I industries out there, from 200 kilowatt hours up to 2 to 5 megawatt hours maximum. So our playing ground is very much the range of 200 to 5 megawatt hours, and very much for CPOs, for utilities, for EPCs, white labeling in this area, very much active. It's all about giving even more insights without going too much into the details. That's how the systems look like. So you have different modules out there on the right-hand side, liquid-cooled. Very often we have so-called off-grid solutions as well. Not so much a topic here in Europe, but very much in Africa, in Australia, some southern European regions. And that's all in one battery system from our side. We have so-called DC bus solutions, mixed bus solutions, or AC bus solutions. As said before, we think that there's a whole trend in the industry in shifting to DC bus. And going from there, we have developed different charging and battery storage solutions based on our own core developed technology, where the main R&D people are sitting in Asia, where we have some production facilities here in Europe as well. And those look like those nice little boxes in here, if you want, off-grid, all-in-one, 200 up to 400 kilowatt hours or more you can put in parallel to basically then go and have so-called split-type charger installations for your chargers, DC fast chargers, which is, as I said, very much due to grid constraints, due to difficulties, due to too much time it takes to have more power on your fast charging stations, which is more and more getting popular or common here in Central Europe as well. In Scandinavia, I think it's very popular already. Norway, Sweden, and some other countries. And that's how it looks like today. And then there are some even more technical details, again, how those solutions look like, where you see on the top the power modules, liquid-cooled, air-cooled modules, 20 to 60 kilowatt, and on the bottom the own developed battery modules. And give you more insights. On the left-hand side, you have all the power electronics, and the main advantage of liquid-cooled is there are different reasons out there why we think that liquid-cooled is a way to go for. For safety reasons, it's for better, less maintenance. Different topics are there why liquid-cooled is, in our opinion, the way to go for the battery modules and the power modules. When you look again to the potential technical setup, without going too much into details here, but this is a typical so-called split-type installation from our side, where you have the dispensers and the DC-DC based modules. Then you have the power and the battery storage on below, and you have the backup then for your fast charging station with that kind of scenario in here, which we are supplying those days for different CPOs in Europe and in Asia. As said before, on the right-hand side, there are only some of the applications you can do with your batteries. There are many more applications out there. It all depends on legislations. It all depends on rules. It all depends on dynamic processes in the politics, how far you have flexible energy tariffs or not, and how far this is really wished by the politics. Again, Scandinavia, from my perspective, is quite upfront in here. Similar topic in Asia, in Japan, for example, or in Korea, it's much more common, or you have much more application there for the energy storage. But it's coming slowly to Germany as well, in Europe. We had a lot of discussions already, I think, with V2G here in Germany. I think from my perspective, why V2G, for example, is only slowly coming, is that there's only 1% or 1.5%, I think, installed smart meters today in Germany. Whereas in Scandinavia, 100% smart meters installed. But I'm shifting a little bit the topic here, sorry for that. So that's again some product sheets in here, how those looks like for the battery storage and the modules and the cubes. So as said, there are different advantages we see in our approach for this solutions. It's off-grid it's possible for off-grid normally. It's liquid cooled. It has so-called MPPT function, and it's movable. We have movable units as well, which sometimes is very interesting for construction power supply, for example, or for different other applications. I will shift rather quicker in here. What do we see as the main pain points for the CPOs today? For a lot of you in the audience, I think very often it is that there is water or dust or salt if we are next to a sea installation, or the noise for sure is a very critical topic. Temperature for sure. Therefore, we think liquid cooled is a better way to go for. Limited space is a topic, and therefore we have developed those solutions. This is a negative picture you see on the left-hand side, how it might look like if you don't use aluminium or stainless steel for your power stations, DC power stations. But coming back to this liquid-cooled topic, we have done different measurements for the batteries themselves, and basically came to the point that where we saw, air-cooled battery systems and a liquid-cooled battery system, and you can see on those kind of pictures here on the right-hand side, this is normally the way or it's much easier to cool down the systems, the batteries themselves, and to keep them cooled down. And the same story basically for the power modules as well, because otherwise, if you have charging stations or batteries installed in Malaysia, in Africa, in the Saudi Arabia, in very hot environments, 50 degrees, or even hotter, we see it much easier having going this liquid cooled way. So, summing up basically very much this whole presentation, I'll give you more insights what we do with in the charger industry. This is the current portfolio from Infypower for the charger industry. It goes from 120 up to 600 kV DC-based fast chargers, and MCS charging as well in the very near future. And to really summing it up, I just give you some nice installations we have done so far, because this has been all the theory before. So I make you some nice slideshow here for some more pictures. I told you about Susmarshausen. You might have heard about this. Some of you know this as well, I think already. It has been very famous for their nicely made design as well, in next to between Augsburg and Munich. Basically looks like this one here, because you have all the electronics either in the roof or on the underground. So you do not see anything next to these small little chargers you have in here. And it's well placed as well, because all the German automotive industry, either coming from Stuttgart, Ingolstadt, or Stuttgart, is coming over there, because it's well situated in the middle of all those three basic automotive hotspots. And therefore, it's very nice, let's say, reference installations. There's some other installations in Augsburg as well. Again, nicely designed as I see it. If we look to the battery storage units, you will have some nicely designed BESS storage units like this one here in France. For CPO, we're supplying our units right now in France today, or in the same CPO in Austria, where you have this battery storage installed next to the DC fast charging industry. And that's how it looks like basically today for the installations in Europe in here. So you can have 200 kilowatt hours, or just putting them in parallel, you go up to 1 megawatt or 2 megawatt hours as set, depending how much power you would need to have as a backup solution for your chargers. Or you have some installations here from China as well. Again, some other European installations for either Infypower branded or branded by some other companies, and that's how it looks like in Romania. In Asia, some installations, how they look like. You have a parking station here in China. You have some more installations in Israel for private bus station, which is becoming more and more an interesting topic as well, where you have very nice bus depot charging installations or V2G installations in Europe or elsewhere. And by the way, Shenzhen has been the electrification city of buses. If you look at the scale and the speed and the amount of buses and cars over there, it's completely amazing, or it's a completely different story than what's happening here in Germany or in Europe. And it might be very interesting to see as well what next week will bring in Munich when there is the International Automotive Show, and to see how all those players from Asia what they will come up with next. But luckily, we have new high voltage technology as well coming up from German OEMs, so it will be much easier to fast charge those nicely announced cars from BMW and Audi and others. And therefore, it will be very interesting, I think, to go there and to continue very shortly with this. Some other installations here, or you have parking stations in China again, for the underground parking stations. Those are all made by the equipment from Infy, or Mercedes-Benz store in China. Some pictures to sum up this whole installation. And okay, I'm nearly done with my presentation, and just have two more slides. You have it see here from America as well. Electric school buses, V2G projects up and running in America. The bus has a little bit been squinched, sorry for that. Or you see truck charging projects as well in the US, in California. Or another installation with a charger and a power booster next to it. So that's how it looks like today. Really summing up, again, buses in Chile, electric buses, based on the experience my colleagues did in Asia, in Santiago. And to sum up, because what is missing, what kind of continent? Africa. So we have South Africa in here. And that is basically what I wanted to show you in here. So, thank you very much for your attention. And please, if you have more questions, I'm free to answer your questions right now or at our booth later on. Come and see us at C4.
Thank you so much, Andreas. So we have time for a few questions. I already received some, but just looking at your sort of success case story, photo album there, I was wondering, you're obviously a very global player. How do you achieve to have sort of the right solution for all these different countries and different use cases, and how do you sort of adapt to this highly fragmented, I guess, landscape? How do you keep flexibility?
I think first of all, it's a Chinese culture in a way. If you wonder, they're very adaptable to concrete need there might be on the market. So there's a lot of speed and agility there is in our company, or not only in our company, but in many other companies from China, in adapting to concrete needs. For sure, it's a very challenging topic as well, especially when you look to topics like grid codes or certifications you need, or testing your equipment, or being sure that you're safe for fire safety reasons, so you have all the grid codes you need and so forth. Especially here in Europe, this is a very important topic as well. Or cybersecurity, like we talked about later on, it's getting more and more important as well in Europe. But I think it's trying to adapt very quickly to the concrete need of concrete projects in the different geographies, and then going, depending on the business or the business opportunities, and in hiring new people. The whole hiring process, for example, in China or in Asia, looks completely different than you would hire here in Asia, in Germany, for example, or in Europe, because of different rules and a lot of potential of good PhD candidates, and therefore it's And then the working culture itself is kind of different as well.
If you had a most important learning from sort of having all these influence from China and this different kind of mindset, what would you recommend for European hardware providers who are currently also, it's not an easy time. So what can we learn from this Chinese culture?
I think everybody, from my perspective, I haven't been so much to China, to be honest, so I'm not an expert for the Asian culture or something like this, but what I see there is that very often people in Asia and China are very tech-minded. They're very used to use whatever kind of tech. They very much like the newest tech. Even elderly people, people who are no more working, are very much used to tech. Everything is based by apps or by smartphones. Nobody's having any more hard copies, or everything is digitized. So it's easier for sure as well to scale and for political reasons you have over there. And but what difficult question. So
moving on, there's another question related sort of to the location, and that is, do you offer white label solutions for players in Europe? No. For which DC charge suppliers do you supply with white label hardware in Europe? Can you say?
No, we cannot.
Sadly.
So we do, but we're not disclosing this at the moment. I'm sorry.
Audience question cannot be answered. And then another question from the audience is, how do you deal with cells in your in your BESS storage systems? Do you also recycle them?
How we deal with the recycling?
Yeah, I guess the question is just, how do you deal with the cells? Make it recycling.
Yeah, there's new regulation in Europe going on, as some of you might know. So there's a battery passport, and you have to recycle your batteries. So the batteries you're bringing to the European market, for sure, you have to have recycling partners in here. So what we're doing, we're about to sign recycling partnerships with European players, where at the end of the day, when the batteries are out of life or when the capacity is going down of those batteries, we are sure that that those companies can recycle the battery modules, which is not something you're free to do. It's basically mandatory to do so. So everybody has to have this, and therefore we are closely looking at this, and we're about to sign different agreements on this for this.
Looking forward to the announcement. And a final question also on your integration with the energy system. How do you prevent energy feedback to the grid when discharging?
I think it is by software, the correct use of software.
Okay. So you software solve it. It sounded like it was a very specific topic that you had to tackle. So then in that case, I can move to another question. So you're tackling a lot of different very complex use cases. How do you ensure seamless coordination and integration across these systems to meet the demands of the customer?
Can you repeat the question? Sorry, how do I?
How do you have all these different very complex use cases? How do you make sure that your system can always meet the demand of the customer, even if he changes, the demands, the requirements change from one day to the next? If you just make it tailor-made for this one application.
It cannot.
Yeah.
Cannot always suit every demand. So I would lie, or it's not possible.
Okay.
So we're not. Yeah.
Short answer.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andreas.
You're welcome.
Warm round of applause for Andreas.